Hi everyone. Today I have a very interesting but sad financial story from the Miami Herald. The Social Security Administration says that they overpaid billions of dollars to people over the last few years. Now it's demanding that these people pay the money back. Wow. The Social Security Administration is trying to reclaim billions of dollars from many of the nation's poorest and most vulnerable people. Payments it sent them, but now says they never should have received. During the 2022 fiscal year, the agency clawed back $4.7 billion of overpayments, while another $21.6 billion remained outstanding, according to a report by the Social Security Administration's Inspector General. One consequence is a costly collection effort for the government and a potentially devastating ordeal for the beneficiary. We have an overpayment crisis on our hands, said Rebecca Vallis, a senior fellow at the Century Foundation think tank. Overpayments push already struggling beneficiaries even deeper into poverty and hardship, which is directly counterproductive to the goals of safety net programs. The agency declined to say how many people have been asked to pay money back. We don't report the number of debtors, spokesperson Nicole Tigman said in a statement. The agency rejected a 2022 Freedom of Information Act request for documentation of every overpayment notice sent over several years, and a March 2023 appeal is pending. Millions have received overpayment Social Security letters, while millions of dollars have been sent to Ukraine, and now the war in Palestine. I wonder how that makes elderly and disabled Americans feel. Jack Smulligan of the Urban Institute, who has done research on Social Security, estimates that millions of people have received notices saying the agency overpaid them. Most are on disability, and many cannot afford to repay the government, Smulligan said. Overpayments can result from Social Security making a mistake or from beneficiaries failing to comply with requirements, intentionally or otherwise. But much of the fault lies with the system. For example, rules are complex and hard to follow. Limits on what beneficiaries can save or own have not been adjusted for inflation in decades. The Social Security Administration does not have adequate staffing to keep up with its workload, much of which is done by hand. What? The system has built-in lags in checking information such as beneficiaries' income and relies heavily on data submitted by beneficiaries themselves. Really? That's the picture that emerges from agency employees, advocates for the disabled, policy research, Social Security Administration publications, reports by Inspector General, records of individual cases, and interviews with more than a dozen people in 5 states who received repayment notices. The Social Security Administration is required to be a good steward of the money entrusted to it. That means keeping overpayments to a minimum and recovering them when they happen, the Inspector General has written. When the agency determines that it's overpaid, the Social Security Administration can ultimately reclaim money from beneficiaries by, for instance, reducing or stopping their monthly benefit payments, garnishing wages, and intercepting federal tax refunds. The agency tracks its overpayment through quarterly payment integrity scorecards. In the most recent scorecard for one Social Security program, the agency said $265 million of overpayments in the 2022 fiscal year were within the agency's control. In other words, the agency blamed itself. We are aware of information but failed to take action, or we took incorrect action when the recipient or third party provided requested information, the scorecard said. A much larger source of overpayments in that program, the agency said, was that beneficiaries did not report information such as changes in their wages or assets. By the time the agency catches a mistake, years can pass. In the meantime, the beneficiary is likely to have spent the money, and the amount involved can grow to overwhelming proportions. We understand getting notice of an overpayment may be unsettling or unclear. Seriously? And we work with people to navigate the overpayment process, Tigman, the agency spokesperson, said by email. Tigman noted that the Social Security Administration is developing a program to tap payroll data from outside sources. The agency plans to use that information, when appropriate, to automatically adjust the amounts it pays beneficiaries, she said. Congress authorized that payroll tapping project almost 8 years ago. So my question is, why on earth hasn't it been implemented yet? When people hear Social Security, they may think of retirement benefits, the monthly payments the government issues to millions of retired workers and surviving family members under the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Program. But the Social Security Administration does much more than issue those checks. Understanding that this grab for money that was already paid out, that they are calling overpayments, commonly involves payments under other programs that have complicated eligibility requirements. With certain benefit programs, how much money, if any, beneficiaries are due each month can change as their circumstances change. Most of the overpayments involve the Supplemental Security Income Program, the SSI, which provides money to people with little or no income or other resources who are disabled, blind, or at least 65. So this is who they're snatching the money back from, while illegal immigrants get $9,000 of rent payments in Chicago. Shaking my head. In addition, some overpayments involve the Disability Insurance Program, who assist disabled workers and their dependents. Lori Cochran, a beneficiary disabled by multiple sclerosis, said she got tripped up by a life insurance policy she took over from her mother. After she reviewed her finances with a Social Security representative, she recounted, she received a letter saying she owed $27,000. I started having heart palpitations, she recalled. Cochran said she didn't know the insurance policy had a cash value of $4,000. The agency told her that for every month she held the policy, she wasn't entitled to any of her $914 monthly benefits, she said. The agency said it would recoup the $27,000 by deducting $91.40 from each of her future checks. At that rate, she would be paying back way into my elderly age, she said. Cochran has asked the Social Security Administration to reconsider. In the meantime, she cashed out the life insurance policy, only to learn that instead she could have signed a paper saying she had no intention of cashing it out. So basically, she could have had her full benefits if they had just told her to write a letter proclaiming that she would not cash out the policy. Is that insane or what? So now I'm left with no life insurance, she said. When I die, my daughter will have no money to bury me. If beneficiaries believe that an overpayment wasn't their fault, that the claim is unfair, or that paying the money back would cause hardship, they can ask the Social Security Administration to waive the payment. That would be the majority of the people receiving these letters. They can also negotiate the payment that they owe gradually. Cheryl Bates Harris of the National Disability Rights Network recommended that people who receive overpayment notices appeal because the information in the notices may be inaccurate. But trying to resolve an overpayment involves plunging into a minefield, said Daisy Melbourne, Director of Social Security and Health Care Policy at the ARC, which advocates for people with disabilities. Another beneficiary named Lori described her journey through the minefield on the condition that her last name be withheld. She provided a copy of an administrative law judge's ruling in her case. In 2017, the Social Security Administration informed her that since 2000, she had been overpaid $126,612, according to the judge's ruling. I almost threw up when I opened that letter, she said. Myself and my husband were like, We were like frantic. According to the judge's ruling, the government based its calculation on her receipt of workers' compensation benefits as well as disability benefits. She argued that she had told the Social Security Administration about the workers' comp. Lori worked for the U.S. Postal Service until she was injured. As her struggle unfolded, the government reduced her monthly benefit checks and then stopped them. She and her husband sold their car and their house and moved from Florida to Georgia, where the cost of living was lower. She said she ran up credit card debt, called lawyer after lawyer, but was told no attorney would help her because there was no money to be made from a Social Security case. Then she found a lawyer through legal aid. After 6 years of battling the Social Security Administration, including multiple appeals, Lori prevailed. An administrative judge ruled in her favor and wiped away the debt. Lori had spent her benefit money in the belief that she was entitled to it, the judge wrote, and requiring repayment would be against equity and good conscience. True. So why not wipe out everyone's so-called debt until the Social Security Administration fixes their system? Dealing with the Social Security Administration can be exasperating, beneficiaries said. Letters from the agency don't provide clear explanation, and if people on the receiving end of overpayment notices can get through to a human, agency employees give inconsistent answers. That sounds familiar. Beneficiaries struggle getting through to an agency that has all but become unresponsive to the public at this point due to understaffing, said Jessica LaPont, a claims specialist in the Social Security Administration's Madison, Wisconsin field office and president of a union council representing Social Security employees. Members of the public often struggle to really understand what they are supposed to report, LaPont said. It's not just bank balances or paycheck amounts and the like that can affect a person's benefits. In the SSI program, if a family member gives them meals or a place to stay, that can count as in-kind support. Really? Part of the trouble with SSI, critics say, is that limits on the assets that beneficiaries are allowed to hold without forfeiting benefits haven't been adjusted since 1989. That's 24 years ago. The asset limits stand at $2,000 for individuals and $3,000 for couples. Oh my goodness. Had the asset limits been indexed for inflation since 1972, when the program was created, they would be almost 5 times as much as they are today, according to a July 2023 report by researchers at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Maintaining eligibility for SSI benefits leaves people with little money to fall back on, let alone to repay a large debt to the government. Stories like this reiterate to most of us that we need to manage our own money. Think about all of the money that has been taken from your paychecks over the years. Or if you have a business, how much was taken from your payroll or on your annual income tax return? Now think about what I just said about the fact that their system hasn't been overhauled in 24 years and most of the work is being done by hand. If you want to give them less money, you have to produce a strategy, and that strategy needs to be implemented as soon as possible because things are getting worse. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone, and it's getting very uncomfortable in these United States. Are you up to an upgrade? If you want to learn how to thrive in this crazy world, I'll be adding mini courses to my website between now and the end of the year. And I plan to conduct a 12-week course on starting and growing your own home-based business, so stay tuned. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And please subscribe to my website so that you'll receive updates and special emails. I don't know how long YouTube is going to be amenable to people like me saying the things that I say. So if you're over on my website and you're subscribed there, you won't miss a beat. Until next time, this is Sherry Peel Jackson signing out.